Have you ever done it like
Up
on
like
record?
no.
Like recording? Okay,
No.
all right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I almost forgot to turn on my duck lamp.
Oh yeah, that's very nice.
And that's Chad behind
Adds
me.
to the ambiance. Very nice.
I don't know how you feel about dead deer, but
Yeah, I've had them in my home before. So,
okay,
yeah.
all right, good.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, yeah, just kind of like how you grew up, where you're from,
Absolutely.
siblings,
Yeah.
if you have them, and all that.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by introducing myself. So,
So, yeah, thank you.
Jaede Ohlrich, and currently live in Spring Hill, Tennessee. I've lived here most of my life. I was born in East Detroit, Michigan. They call it East Point now. After we moved, they tried to make it sound a little bit more upper class, honestly.
Oh, okay. A little fancier spin.
Yeah, there were like neighborhoods called East Point that were more the affluent part of the city.
Okay.
Anyways, but I predate that. So
Yeah.
born in East Detroit, Michigan, and lived there until I was 13, right before I was going into high school. So my upbringing was pretty typical of, being raised in a city. I spent a lot of time with my oldest brother. So he's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
And then my mom actually remarried when I was about 5 years old. So that introduced a couple stepbrothers into the mix. They were younger than me. They didn't live with us, but they would visit every other weekend. And a typical kind of week in East Detroit was going to school, playing with my friends, riding around on bicycles. In addition to that, I would say that, we were really grounded in our family and our faith. So we went to St. Peter's Lutheran Church that was nearby. We would go to church every Sunday. Obviously was baptized as a baby. Lutheran kind of believe in the Holy Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And right before I moved, I actually had gone through what they call a confirmation. So you go to class and learn about God, and then get confirmed, and big party, and then you have your first communion.
Is that at a particular age?
So probably right around like your early teen years is when that would happen within the Lutheran Church.
The confirmation?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so similar to Catholicism in
Yes,
some
it's very
regard.
similar.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of subtle differences that are based on Martin Luther.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
so that was kind of my upbringing. I had the two stepbrothers, the older brother. I would consider myself a tomboy, played with my brother and his friends, and just, roughed around the neighborhood, rode bikes, etc.
Yeah.
A pretty good upbringing. And we were relocated to Spring Hill because of the Spring Hill Saturn car company.
Oh, that's
so
right.
my stepfather was relocated and moved the family there when I was 13. My brother was going into his junior year in high school, and that kind of brought us here.
Okay, so your stepfather
Stepfather.
was involved in working for GM, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Saturn plant, when was that?
1991.
That's when it opened here?
Yeah. Well, it may have opened a couple years prior,
Yeah.
but that's when we moved here. And it was still kind of the early years of Saturn.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, was East, I don't know any, all I know about Detroit is what Eminem sings about.
Sure.
And so what was East Detroit like back then? Was that like the
Yeah.
kind of blue collar working class, or was it a little rougher around the edges?
Yeah, it was more kind of working class. There were, if you moved down to like 8 Mile, if we're talking about Eminem, I
Yeah.
lived on 9 Mile.
Oh, so you're
and
like
9 Mile was a little bit better than 8 Mile.
a smidge.
a little
mile,
smidge
is
better.
it a mile away?
Yeah, I
Is
would
that
say
how-
so.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was
yeah,
literal.
I think it's really like mile marked.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't really rough.
Yeah.
Over the years, I definitely would say that, East Detroit had its challenges in terms of
Yeah.
where it was headed, and Detroit in general. I like to reflect on it and say, it was a good thing that we kind of moved out when we did.
Yeah.
So
And this is 91?
91.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And so before your mom remarried,
Yeah.
it was just you?
So my mom and my dad were married till I was about 4, I think, is when they divorced.
Okay.
With my brother, obviously.
I'm sorry, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
because
yep.
I knew you got more siblings.
Yeah, the two stepbrothers.
Okay,
Yeah.
younger brothers. you
Yes.
mentioned. Okay.
Yeah. And I absolutely have to mention my great grandmother lived 2 doors down. So we called her Ma. And because my mom for a short time was a single parent, we spent a lot of time at Ma's house. along with our neighbors. And my mom was wall washing and just doing, whatever kind of jobs that she could to help provide for our family at that time. We were on welfare, and really, had that period of time where we depended on our community around us to help support us until my stepfather came into the picture. And then we had obviously more in terms of what was provided for us, both financially and, just from a family support system.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was she working at the time of their divorce? Or
she wasn't.
So she had to jump back in the workforce.
Yeah.
Is wall washing like power washing?
Inside the house without a power washer, but they do have a machine, and that was the business that my great-grandmother owned, was a wall washing business.
Wow.
And she actually ran it until she was 82 years old. And I remember, a lot of memories about my great-grandmother, but one, kind of our heritage ties to German, and she was really a strong and stubborn German woman who owned her own business, and she went through a lot of health challenges herself, but continued to run this business and had her workers, that provided for her, in an awesome community. And honestly, I attribute, and we'll probably talk about, a lot of my path in life and what I ended up doing was really focused on a passion for serving others. And one of the memories that I have is sitting on my grandmother's floor in her kitchen and listening to the conversations that she would have with other women that would come in and just talk about life and like what they were challenged with. And they would solve the world's problems over like coffee and toast. My grandmother loved to have toast and marmalade.
Oh, that's so good.
Amazing.
In this like post carbohydrate world, like these type of like, it's so awesome. Wow. Okay. So was she kind of like, she sounds like a wise woman, that and a leader, not only business owner, but women would come and seek advice.
And our family would get together for holidays. She would cook, huge meals. And I remember my mom just a few years ago telling me, like, I wish we didn't just eat and leave. A lot of times it felt like we were just eating and leaving, after all that work that she put into the meals, and I was just like, that's a really cool reflection of, again, the importance not only of being together and that time together, but also recognizing and being blessed for what, anybody goes through to bring community together.
That's a chunk of wisdom just today in terms of it's so easy to just stick to a schedule. It's like, okay, I'm going to leave right after this or at this time. I'm someone that gets a little too stuck on, all right, well, I need to leave by this time and be at bed this time because I'm getting up at this time. And you just kind of miss out, like your mom's reflection on, I wish we had just hung around, spend a little more time. Wow. So I'm a little fascinated by this wall washing business because I've never heard of it. So is this like industrial or in homes? Or?
In homes.
It is. And it's just cleaning the walls.
She would have a wall washing machine with these very special rags and whatever she used. A lot of it was hot water, but there was probably like Murphy's oil soap as an example. And then the walls were different, right? They were more plaster based than drywall.
Oh, interesting.
And so you'd go into the house and do the cleaning and do the wall washing, and that was her entire business. When I mentioned Grosse Pointe, we had family members that lived in that neighborhood. And again, kind of more affluent, and so she had a lot of clients in the Grosse Pointe area, and I remember going on a couple occasions, while she was working to the house for whatever reason. I was probably like just not able to be at school. Who knows? And just watching her kind of work and the people that were there. But the people that she worked for, again, really grew to love her and know her and know her family. And that's really what cultivated that community that showed up in her kitchen. It was really awesome.
Wow. Do you think, because is this still a business? And I promise I'll get off the wall washing. Is this still something
I have no idea. It's probably more house cleaning, and you don't wash the walls as much, right? You wash like the baseboards.
Yeah.
I think so.
And I also, in my mind, is because everyone smoked like,
I'm
chimneys
sure.
back then.
Yeah, honestly, my mom could probably give you some details because she did it.
Yeah.
But I do remember her mentioning something about the cigarette smoke and like the yellowing of the walls.
Yeah. Because people were smoking straights back then,
Absolutely.
and chain smoking,
Sure.
It's like whatever the doctors
Yeah.
recommended, this brand.
Right.
You look at those old advertisements and it's like, have you had your cigarette
Yeah.
today? I'm like, this is
I know.
crazy.
It is crazy.
The
Things you learn about health.
That's fascinating. So
Yeah.
your great grandmother owned the business.
Yes.
And was your great grandfather a part of this, or what was the?
All I remember
there?
him doing was walking to the bakery.
Okay.
We had a bakery on the corner.
All right.
His name was Solomon Orville.
Wow.
Just such a cool name.
That is.
And her name was Elizabeth Fagan. So Solomon Orville Fagan and Elizabeth Fagan. My oldest daughter's Elizabeth, named after her.
Oh, cool.
And so I don't know what he did, honestly, but I do remember walking with him to the bakery a whole lot and getting homemade bread and cookies and
man.
whatever else we needed, milk and eggs.
That's great.
Yeah, with the dog. So
that's
he
cool.
passed. I don't know how old he was, honestly. He may have been in like his 60s or 70s. So I remember a lot of time alone with Ma.
Do you remember what you would get at the bakery?
So they have these Italian cookies that, like with sprinkles and stuff.
Okay.
That was mainly what I would get. But they also have better made chips in Michigan that are made in Detroit, and they have hot chips.
That's spicy.
And they're really spicy. They're fantastic. They're probably awful for you. But even after moving to Tennessee, like when we'd make trips home, we would get the hot
stock
chips
up.
and bring them.
That's great.
So yeah, it was pretty incredible. So those are the main things. Push-up pops. We'd ride our
Yep.
bike and go get the push-up
Those
pops.
I remember.
Yeah.
Well, we call them push pops. I don't know if it's
we
the
call
same
'em
thing.
push-up.
Were these weren't like the Flintstones?
The orange
were they?
ones, yeah.
Okay.
That like are in the toilet paper
Yes,
tube.
the white toilet paper tube, basically, and
Yes.
and it leaks
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And the plastic bottom on
Yeah.
it. Then you got to lick at the end.
Yes.
Are those still around?
Yeah.
This
they
is
are.
going to turn into just an episode about
They
food.
are.
All right, that's I didn't know any of that. That's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
what generation was your great grandmother coming here?
So she was
know?
born in 1904. She was in World War II. She was one of the Rosie the Riveters.
Really?
The women that put like the numbers on the tanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, she did
That's
that.
cool.
Which is very cool. Yeah.
because they had that whole campaign, right, of these women like just
Yes.
gritty,
Yeah.
strong women.
And again, like that's who she was.
Yep.
100%.
Wow.
And I think that carried through a lot of who the women in our family ended up becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's your mom's mother.
That's my mom's grandma.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
my mom's mom, her daughter, Shirley,
Yep.
she passed at age 51 of a brain aneurysm.
Oh wow.
So
Just
really,
suddenly.
yeah, suddenly it was Christmas Eve, I think, when she passed. So very sudden. So my mom kind of had experienced that as well, losing her mom. She was pregnant with me. So my mom would have been 31 when she lost her mom.
Oh,
And
wow.
so Ma, again, kind of that predominant, maternal force
Yeah.
in our family, both for my mom and then ended up, for us as kids, my brother and I.
Can't imagine outliving your kids,
Yeah,
right? You hear
right.
about that, like your great grandmother
Yeah.
outliving her daughter.
Yep. So
Wow.
so my mom's dad, Howard and Shirley, after Shirley passed, eventually my grandpa Howard moved to Canada because he's always loved it there, and his family kind of originates from Canada. They're French Canadian, so I kind of have the German French Canadian.
Yeah.
My mom ended up purchasing his home because it was in East Detroit, right? The house I ended up growing up in was the house my mom grew up in.
Oh wow.
And she lived in that home for 43 years before moving to Tennessee. So it was a
Wow.
big cultural
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
for us. And my great grandmother had passed by then, by 1991. I forget what year she passed, but she was kind of, 84 maybe when she passed. So
Those deep generational roots, like in a particular place, I can't imagine, like being where I'm from. I mean, we're the first generation of family being out there, and
Yeah.
so but when you have like relatives and generations there,
Right.
buried there, and
Yeah.
been there for a while, I can imagine that's a big change.
yeah.
Do you
yeah.
remember what it was like coming from Detroit to Spring Hill?
It was hard.
I bet.
It was very difficult. you're used to that city life and access to whatever you need. And when we moved to Tennessee, we actually lived in Thompson Station, Tennessee.
Rural.
Very rural.
Not
so
anymore.
We used to joke, like, we had McDonald's on our corner. Now we have the cows that make McDonald's. You know?
Okay.
And
I like it.
we got to select our high school, and so we were zoned for Page High School,
Okay.
which again is fairly rural. And I guess back then the population wasn't as much as it is today.
Yeah.
So we were able to look at Franklin High School as well.
Okay.
And when we were on our way to Franklin, we saw McDonald's, and we said, we're going to Franklin High School.
Yeah.
So that's where my brother and I ended up going to Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah, but we had neighbors that went to Page.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
I didn't realize that's how you got out here.
Yeah. And
it's-
there were a lot of families in our neighborhood that also had moved from Michigan.
Okay.
So that was helpful.
that
Provided
makes
a little
sense.
bit of stability in
Yeah.
terms of like the change. But it was still hard, like going to high school, and a lot of people that grew up here. And also it was changing things. Saturn coming in was changing Spring Hill. And so there was a little bit of resentment for that.
Yeah. Because they wanted to keep it a small,
Yeah,
quaint
absolutely.
town.
Yeah. Yep. So we had to work through that. I was called a Yankee in high school, and people didn't want to be my friend, and
Really?
those types of things. But I found my core group of friends in high school, a lot of them who had also moved for a variety of other reasons. But we kind of made that core group. But I'm pretty friendly. So, I made friends with people that were born here, too.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, that's fascinating. Thanks
Yeah.
for the overview.
Yeah,
background
absolutely. Yeah.
On that. We met. Was it the first time I came over? Was it in October or November?
I think it was late October. It could have been early November, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to give. So that was soon after. I didn't realize at the time when we met.
Yeah.
When was your diagnosis of cancer, and what is the diagnosis?
Yeah. So my diagnosis came kind of on the onset September 19th, and then it was followed up by a few more rounds of testing and biopsies kind of late, early to mid-October. I actually haven't shared publicly what the diagnosis is in particular, and I'll give you some context as to why. But I have sarcoma. Most sarcomas, there's a ton of different subtypes, but they tend to be very rare. Mine is equally rare as a subtype, but primarily because it's usually found in pediatric instances. So kids get this particular form of cancer.
Okay.
It's unlikely or less likely, not unlikely, because here I am, less likely for adults to get it. And there's about 300 to 400 adults that are diagnosed with this particular cancer.
That's each year.
What's that?
Each year there's
Each
3
year.
to 4. Okay, so that's. In terms of cancers,
kind of
that must be extremely
kind of
small.
drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
I like to say it's because I'm young at heart.
There you go.
Which is why I ended up with this.
Yeah.
So rare. It's also aggressive. So when my cancer diagnosis came, it was actually because I had fluid in my abdomen, and when they did a CT scan, they saw the cancer carcinomatosis within my peritoneal wall. So what that meant is it had already spread. So rare, advanced, and then it's also pretty aggressive, the particular subtype of cancer. And so my diagnosis actually came after a short stay at Vanderbilt Hospital, and they had done a tumor biopsy, and they were able to identify the cancer type, which was about 4 weeks to get like the actual diagnosis and then start chemotherapy. So I started chemotherapy the end of October, which was roughly about 6 weeks from the onset of the ascites and the fluid that was eventually needing to be drained every 7 days, and it was 4 liters of fluid in my abdomen.
Every 7 days?
Every 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was the, from the time you first noticed something to the time you went in to have it checked, what's that window?
I was really short. I had gone on vacation with the family in August, end of July, August, and was feeling relatively fine. The only thing I noticed over the course of 2024 was like a lack of what I described as a lack of motivation. I'm a pretty driven person, high achiever, and I just didn't feel like myself, and I didn't feel like doing some of the things that I normally would do, like socially, etc. The only symptom that I really had before the fluid was like shortness of breath. In certain circumstances, like when I was walking upstairs, I was like, why am I out of breath? You know, and I enjoy hiking, and I found myself like, I'm not even getting out and really exercising. There was just like this lack of desire. But also when I did kind of put that physical exertion out, I would have that shortness of breath. So it was that, and then it was the fluid. And the fluid was like, it came on quick. So over the course of really like a week and a half, I was with my primary care doctor saying, like, what is going on? Yeah.
Sudden weight
Very
gain
sudden.
in size and okay. So you're already experiencing some of the fatigue.
Yeah.
But then it was really when the fluid showed up, and that was like in a week and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they know are they able to tell like how long it was in your body?
They don't really say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there's like
I mean, if I go back in some of my medical history, the weird thing is like I've done everything to be healthy, you know. I mean, even early on, like the colonoscopies, like the lab work, the everything, you know, and so it was like very shocking to get that news. And you know, if I look back, I mean, there are symptoms of this cancer, but you would never pinpoint it to this specific cancer. It's like headaches. You know, I've had headaches, you know, different things GI related, but nothing that so specific. So
when you're so you go in to get, you know, an idea of what's going on. And they come back with, you know, I would imagine they want to do some more tests.
Right.
When they actually come back with like, hey, you know, it's cancer. Do you remember like what that was like? The emotions
some of it, I will say, like that day and kind of the days following were and are kind of a bit of a blur. But I had an abdominal ultrasound. That's how my doctor was like, you have fluid in your abdomen, go get a CT scan. This was the next day, and she said, and because you have fluid and it's uncomfortable, obviously at that point it like created a lot of pain because similar to when you're pregnant, like on the sides you get like this muscle kind of tension. And then my back was sore. I was like, this literally feels like, you know, being pregnant. I've done that twice. But I went and had the CT scan, and I think the technician saw something. She knew I was going to the emergency room to get the fluid drained, and she handed me the disc. And so I went to the emergency room in Franklin and had the fluid drained, and then was in, and the doctor came in, and she said, you know, she was just kind of assessing where I was at, and she's like, well, your doctor told you had cancer, right? And I was like, no.
That's how it came out?
Yeah. She's like, I'm really sorry to tell you, like, you have cancer. And I was like...
And this is who speaking?
The emergency room doctor.
Emergency room doctor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's a heck of a way to receive the news.
It was. And so she's like, you should stay because we probably need to run more tests. And I was like, well, what does that look like? And she's like, well, I have a call into oncology, but they haven't returned the call. And this is like a Thursday night. My youngest daughter's playing softball. I'm supposed to be at the game. And I was like...
They're dropping a bomb on
you. I was like, well, what if I don't stay? Because I'm like, I want to go at this point. And she said, you know, the emergency room can fast track a lot of these testings, which is why you would want to stay. But if you go, you can always come back. I was like, sounds good. Goodbye. So
it's been fun.
So I got discharged and called kind of immediately a couple of my closest friends. I don't even remember, like looking back, like
there was no real details at this point.
No, it was
just had cancer.
You could see it, right, because that was in the peritoneal wall of my abdomen. So it was the carcinomatosis was the initial diagnosis. Like we know there's cancer there, but we don't know where it's originating from, kind of. I don't know that they really even know to this day where it originated from because it's all in the abdomen. So even the accompanying tumors that are there, that are present, that are from the biopsy, right, identified as the cancer, usually this cancer presents itself in your extremities first as a tumor. So you have a tumor in your arms or your legs or your head. And I don't have that, luckily. So I left and I kind of held the news. I think that evening I don't think I told my family. But I went to Vanderbilt the next morning and kind of carried the knowledge of that diagnosis there. And
did you sleep that night? Do you remember?
I don't even know.
I
have no idea. It was a blur.
Okay.
But one of my closest friends, like, you're going to Vanderbilt. I was like, okay. So I was there, and I think they did some additional kind of testing, but again, didn't have like the diagnosis, but they were able to assign me to oncology. At that point, it was a surgical oncologist doctor that I was assigned to, and she was going to follow up with some tests. But at that point, they want to do colonoscopy, endoscopy. They want, additional CT scans. Like now they're looking everywhere. And so that kind of followed along with the paracentesis to do the fluid drain. And they don't do that unless you have it scheduled as outpatient. So I spent a lot of time at Vanderbilt over the, next coming weeks. It's pretty crazy. I think over like 5 or 6 weeks time, I had like 4 days where I didn't have an appointment and wasn't like away at Vanderbilt for a variety of reasons. And then had a hospital stay early October. And that's when they did the biopsy, and that's when I got the diagnosis.
So over the next 4 or 5 weeks, like almost daily.
Yeah. And I was sick.
Visits.
Like, I was very ill. I couldn't really sit up or walk or do anything to take care of myself. And luckily I had a couple friends that over that course of time came in to help. Obviously I have family around, my mom and my brother and his wife that were able to help too. But yeah, I was really ill. So my target was like, let's figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, whatever it is, so we know it's cancer, like I need to start treatment because I can't do this myself.
Yeah.
Right.
You mean like being that ill?
Just being that ill.
Yeah.
Like I needed medicine.
Yeah.
And I needed more than that, and that's kind of what I've come to find out too. That's really kind of rooted in my faith journey is medicine is one thing, but what you need when you're going through something like this is far deeper than medicine alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I want to dig into that. And this is YouTubing Mistake 101. I want to make sure that it's still recording because my screensaver's on.
Okay. Yeah. Check it out.
I look down and I'm like, why is it?
Right.
It's
gone
it keeps
to
recording.
Sleep. Yeah.
And anytime you need to take a break, feel free. So then you mentioned, which I think is an extremely important point you made, where it's like, medicine's one thing, but you needed something much deeper than that. Now I have a fly. That's perfect. So I guess what is that?
Yeah. I mean, it gradually kind of became more evident for me that I needed really to understand, like, where do you go in uncertainty?
Yeah.
There was so much on this whole path, and it continues, that you're kind of forced into a space of unknown. And also, you can't get too far ahead of yourself in terms of anything planning related, which is very foreign to how I've lived my life. I've always set goals and milestones, achieved them, kind of tackle the next thing. And that just wasn't possible anymore. So early on, and actually when...
you can pull it just a little closer. I want to make sure you capture this. No, you're good.
Okay. My neighbors that live next door had come over and really just offered prayer and also advice. Yeah. And I had, are we good?
Oh yeah. Sorry, okay. That's just my hand at this point.
So my neighbors came over and offered prayer and advice in terms of, how they've supported others faithfully on whatever journey they've been on, where there's been, challenge and difficulty or a trial. And they said, a lot of what you're going to find yourself thinking and doing is through forgiveness and faith. And that was really kind of the first seed that was planted. And again, when I think about my life, I have the belief in God, and I have a strong foundation from my upbringing.
Yeah.
But there's a good period of my life where I would say, I got a little distant from God. It's hard to find a Lutheran church in Middle Tennessee. There are some,
Yeah.
and we've visited them
Yeah.
and been a member of a couple of them, honestly. And life happens. And I found myself with my husband and first daughter being part of a Lutheran church, and she was baptized, and we were members and providing kind of that community support. And then as years went on and I had the birth of my second child, we weren't church members. We didn't go to church. We still practiced prayer,
Yeah.
at bedtime. And I still believed in the support of God during different trials in my life and changes. And, it was definitely something I leaned on when I went through my divorce with my ex-husband. But this was different. It was just very different. And that was, again, the first seed that was planted. There are some really interesting connections in terms of the people that have been brought into my life through God since my diagnosis. And I have a lot of stories. I remember specifically, so here's Jaede, who's been divorced, single mom, in professionally still involved. So I have, people in my community professionally, but socially, I'm not dating. And so you feel alone.
Yeah.
And I remember myself praying for more joy in my life, joy through relationships, joy just through, maybe being less serious, because as a single parent, you get really focused on the things that need to happen in life.
Is this post-diagnosis or just leading up to?
Yeah, the kind of marriage, divorce was leading up to. I was divorced in 2020.
Yep. Okay.
And just to provide a little bit of context, but this prayer of post-divorce of I need more joy in my life.
Yeah. And
after diagnosis, through a connection that my dog made, because I needed help. Also, I had a puppy, and I wasn't able to walk her and play with her and take care of her, and she was growing fast and had a lot of energy. One of my neighbors helped coordinate support for Daisy and brought in a neighbor named Joy.
Oh, that's right.
And for me, that was, again, a prayer answered, very different than what I would have thought, right, at the time. But Joy has brought me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Not only in the connection of caring for Daisy, but she's my neighbor and she sees me every day. So, and she's very connected faithfully to God and to service others. And, she will tell you that this connection was a prayer answered for her too, and finding community, and that she's found community in that connection for me. And as we've grown to know each other, we've really shared a lot that has helped us evolve our faith. So that's kind of another example.
Yeah.
And then one of my youngest daughter's friend's mom, who I knew, but I didn't know especially well. But we had, connected, and our daughters would play. She came to Vanderbilt when I was in the hospital, and one brought me food, which was great because hospital food is not the best.
Which is such an iron.
So, and all I wanted was a Chick-fil-A salad. So she was able to bring that, which was really nice. But as she was sitting there, and she had met one of the friends that was staying with me in my home and helping during me not being well, and they had connected. So it was the friend, and then Becca, the mom, the mom friend.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, you've been heavy on my heart ever since I met you. And she said there was one time when the kids were playing and we were kind of talking, and she was like, really appreciating kind of our connection as moms and what that had to offer for our daughters. And she said, but there was a voice that told me, but she doesn't know Jesus. And she said, I'm here today to bring the gift of Jesus.
Wow.
And I was just like, that was powerful.
Yeah.
Emotionally powerful for me. but so profound in terms of what would unfold. Once I went home, and that week, the diagnosis came. It was very specific. Again, not anything anyone wants to hear. And you kind of have that moment where you're like cracked open.
Yeah.
And I can't even describe it other than, you feel like you're just brought to a state of rawness, raw emotion, kind of navigating now, like, what does life look like from this point forward, and recognizing for me that I have to put all of my faith in Jesus. And really learning, like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because I've prayed to God, but this specific focus on surrender, and putting the fear and, the worry and the unknowns really at the feet of Jesus, and trusting that this is, and I feel like this is a gift. This is a gift that helps me service my life's purpose. And that was evolving for me after I had left corporate America. I started
meaning
this cancer.
Yeah.
This cancer is a gift.
The first time you said that when we were having coffee a couple weeks back, it was one of the most surprising statements I've heard someone, and having that perspective.
Yeah. I've felt that way since the beginning of the diagnosis. So much so that the people around me, I call them kind of my core warriors. There were 11, now there are 12 because of joy, which is ironic, right? If you get into scripture, which for me, my faith is unfolding.
Yeah.
I've also been blessed with people like yourself that have come for whatever reason in my path, and have helped teach me and have helped lead me through practice of how to pray, what to pray for.
Sure.
And it's what I call puzzle pieces in this journey that continue to be placed. And that's a huge blessing. But yes, I consider it a gift, because, again, I believe that my life has a specific purpose, and this experience without this experience, I wouldn't have been able to appreciate the power of community and the power of faith.
And do you think this was instrumental in you, like, meeting the person of Jesus, or I guess where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I've done a variety of things again that are brought my way. I had a prayer session that kind of allowed me to connect with God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and just kind of have that dialogue in prayer. And what I find is He's very present in my life. And I feel that, and I bring in a lot of different, you can call them therapies as I go through treatment. One being therapy specifically with a therapist, and there's a lot of mindful meditation and different practices, and one was focused attention. And as I was going through that focused attention, you usually have an anchor that you focus on that allows you to really be still and be present and be in your body. And in that session for me, where a lot of people anchor on breath or seat or like something of their senses, I found myself anchoring, Jesus holding my hand. I carried so much stress in that moment going into that session, because I had received some feedback about my last set of scans that were not positive. Because
they initially showed shrinking of the tumors, right?
They did in December.
And the treatment was responding well.
Yep.
And then you got more scans.
Yep. It was about 21 weeks into chemotherapy. Okay. And then had the second set of scans. And again, we're measuring in like millimeters.
Sure.
But
the wrong direction.
Yeah, wrong direction. And so, the kind of course correction there is new chemotherapy. And so I'm in this therapy appointment at right after that. And Jesus is my anchor, in that moment. He's very present in terms of my everyday.
when do you, if you had to like kind of pinpoint a time, and maybe it's reoccurring, maybe it's not, maybe is there a particular setting where you experience the presence of Christ? So, like that kind of, it's one thing to talk about and know that he's there, but like where you actually feel like his presence.
Yeah.
And
so that time after I left the hospital, when I was what I describe as cracked open, kind of that in that moment, I felt like I was really filled with the Holy Spirit. And I felt different after that.
Like changed.
Yeah, changed.
Yeah.
Almost like I keep using the word rebirth.
Like reborn.
Yeah. I honestly, that's,
like a born again
that's what it
experience.
feels like.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, life after kind of cancer. And I'll be forever changed. I spend a lot of time in stillness during hard moments. So like leading up to the first scan, it was a week before I got the results. I could have accessed it in my portal, but I didn't. But I waited because I felt like I needed to just be still and just allow kind of the days to go by with that peace until my doctor told me, why do I need to tell myself, let the doctor speak?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of drawn to those moments when I feel like I need to be still, but it's in those moments where I do feel that closeness that I have with Jesus. And in the morning, my devotional time is really important. In the evening, it's very important. On Sundays for me, and every other weekend, my kids are with their dad, and that just allows me a little bit more time to devote to my faith and prayer and whatever I'm drawn to that I need. Yeah. And that's found in him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with, and I don't know where it is specifically, but where it says, "Be still and know that I am God"?
I have heard that.
I mean, it's what you're describing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, all right, I'm going to just quit allowing myself to be so distracted or anxious or, fearful or whatever, or trying to control everything. And like being still and like just listening. Yeah. Like I don't need to be the one talking all the time, and know that I'm God. Yeah. Like I got you.
Yeah. That didn't exist for me up until, the last 6 months in that way. There was a stillness that I found in, meditation and what I'd call self-care. But again, it was always just me doing it alone, right? And I think like that's a profound lesson in all of this, both in really being still and giving it to God and letting your faith guide you that there is purpose and trust that you don't have to have it figured out and you shouldn't.
Right.
And you don't because he does.
Yep.
That's a huge lesson. It's hard. It's really hard at times to just live in the day. And I'm getting better at it. So I think that has definitely been a huge learning in the practice of kind of prayer and faith and scripture, bringing more of those key messages from the Bible forward that really have a profound opportunity to reshape my thinking. Yeah. The sermon that I listened to last Sunday was equally powerful in that I am not enough. And the way that translated for me being in church, because this is the first time I went to church in person. I've been attending church virtually because I don't want to expose myself to germs.
Right. Because then it knocks you out of the treatment schedule, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And so obviously like the, fall winter season is not the time to be around people.
And people were getting hit hard this year.
Yeah. So I show up in church.
Yep.
I show up for this message. Yeah. And the message is basically, illustrating for me the reality of like, I am in faith, I am not enough. Like I can be so faithful and I can pray and I can do all the things that are focused on my spiritual journey. Okay. But it needs to be more than that. And it found one through God. But in the presence of the congregation praising that day, I felt it.
With your other brothers and sisters in Christ. Yeah.
And that's really important. Wow. Because for me, I've been able to do most everything by myself.
Yeah.
So, but this, I am not enough faithfully to be able to, continue through the difficult times, days, the healing process, really calling for that miracle.
Yeah.
It needs to be done with others in faith. And that was an opportunity to do that, to worship, to sing. And it was amazing. And it was exactly what I needed last Sunday,
Wow.
And again, I didn't go there with the plan to even stay, because I attend virtually. I went there into their prayer clinic to devote that time to prayer. But something much more powerful said, this is the day that you stay.
The Holy Spirit's nudging you,
yes.
like, let's go.
Yeah.
That's
and I'm really
so
glad
awesome.
that I did.
One thing I've noticed every time I've spoken with you is just how alive the scriptures are.
Yeah.
Like you're actually living out like the spirit in which they were written and spoken. And as you're describing, like I'm not enough in and of myself, and I need to be a part of that community. And talking about just how we're many members, all different purposes and reasons why we're here, but we make up the body. And as you're talking, I was just thinking about that too. And as you always, every time you share, whether we're at the coffee shop or here, it's it's just like through this difficult journey that most people would probably 10 out of 10 times, but no thanks. Like, I don't want that gift, as you referred to it as, and like, no thanks. I'm good. But then seeing not only how there's been this like born again process, this rebirth, this, and just and all this healing that's taking place, what it really sounds like to your spirit, and soul and your faith in Christ. And as well as you're going through the physical, healing, moving towards that as well. It's pretty remarkable.
Thank you.
Like, just to go through it in that way where people can really you've seen people, and no one would ever like criticize them for it, but they take a different route of wondering like, why me, how could this happen? I've done nothing, and having a completely different approach and experience with it.
I can't imagine it any other way, but I know that it's challenging and it's a difficult path that each person has to kind of take their individual approach. In that same sermon, I think what was also, and the pastor was like, don't miss what I'm telling you, was not only do you need that support of others through service, right? Through service, through support, through community, but you will run out. And the scripture was with reference to the fish and the bread, specifically, and you have to go back to God, right? Yeah. So there is this be of service, in your humanity, live as Jesus did. But again, that connection for us has to be back. To get more, because we're not enough.
Right.
So not only am I not enough in my faith journey, I need the support of the community, my brothers and sisters supporting me faithfully, but we all need that connection to Christ. Yeah. And that was, again, like, it made a lot of sense. Yeah. For me, I have a passion in community and service. And there are things that I do in action of that frequently, but it has to be connected to Christ. And that connection to Christ is important, very important. It's a value, that I hold and with my family. And through this experience, one that I can teach my daughters, which is really important as the years unfold, and they're growing and learning. And a lot of what we've connected to in our family's values are words that start with C. And there's like 16 of them now. Ironically, my oldest daughter is 16. But the last two are learnings through cancer and Christ. Wow. And, I've started to write that down more for them. Yeah. Because, in their life's journey, they're going to face a whole lot. Cancer speaks to a lot of your love for your body, because there's a realization there of strength that allows you to take on a challenge like cancer and overcome it. And, I think society today is challenging all of us, especially young girls, in terms of body image and comparison and mental health.
Yeah.
And, I even look back on, I'm not a very critical person. I share, my appreciation for both self-care, but who I am. But, there's moments that we all have that, of like we're, saying negative things in our mind towards our body. And after I had cancer, I looked at myself very differently in terms of strength and what my body can do and will do.
Yeah.
And then with Christ in particular, this whole faith journey and how important it is for that strong foundation and for that trust and for that surrender. And I don't care what the trial is. I mean, sure, we're talking about cancer, but you pick it. Everybody has trials in life. Everybody has sin. Yeah. And we all need a path to evolve from where we're at. And that path is through Christ. Yep. And those kind of two messages build upon the series of C words like, courage and compassion and community for my kids that really make up our values.
That's awesome. Gosh, there's always so many thoughts as you're talking. I forgot what I was going to ask you next. Oh, this is kind of going back a little bit, but then I kind of want to jump forward too. Yeah. Before the divorce, you mentioned after the birth of your second daughter. Yeah. Your faith had kind of just been maybe put on hold or neutral, maybe, or just it wasn't. You weren't as involved. It sounds like. Do you recall kind of what led to that? Because I'm always fascinated with other individuals on their particular journey of faith, and it is absolutely a journey. But when it does kind of feel like it's kind of gotten out of its position of priority, and when do you recall like what led to like the slow change in that area? And I remember you said you kept God, prayers was still important. Yeah. But just in terms of like, what kind of allowed that shift to slowly take place, you think? Or
for me, the shift with kind of my connection to God was through the busyness of life. So I'm now raising 2 daughters. I'm a career-driven, motivated, end up, being an executive. There's just the busyness of life. I think that tends to, if you don't have that foundation, that can easily pull you into a different priority. Okay. And, specifically, as you go through a divorce, your world is, unhinged. And there's a lot that you're now focusing in on that transition and your kids. Like for me, that becomes a priority. Yeah. Out of necessity, out of survival, Sure. And yes, I found myself definitely praying. And there's, worship music that I connect to with some of the lyrics, like kind of reaffirming like God has always been there. Like you've always been there. And I've realized that. Like, wow, you never left my side through all of these trials in my life and successes. But yet I didn't call upon you. I didn't have the dialogue with you. And I, it's very different now that I'm able to do that. And so, importance of reestablishing that for me is really the last 6 months of being guided more directly by God. And
just knowing that his posture is the open arms, like, come to me, like even if you've been out doing the worst things, it's like the posture of the Father is always like, I want a relationship with you. I want you to come to me. I want you, where I think sometimes, depending on how you were raised or we've heard and stuff, it's like a disappointed, angry God, and he is a just God, and there's, there's sin and there's righteousness and all these things. But the posture of the Father is that, you would accept his son, that you would be in relationship with him. And I think sometimes we forget how eager he is.
It's interesting that you say that, because as I've entered kind of back into, establishing my faith, the way that it shows up for me is very, for me, I'm very childlike in that experience. So
Perfect.
I mean, I've had times where I, have massage for relaxation, for kind of clearing my mind. And one time I had the Bible stories and hymns that I remember from being a kid in Bible study just on repeat, and hadn't thought about them in years. And so that night I was pulling up some of the Bible songs and playing them for my daughter. I was like, she's never heard them.
Yeah. The classics.
Yeah. And so that's been interesting. And then also through some guided prayer also of just him holding my hand, and kind of my response to that has been almost I felt like I'm a child in this, and that appreciation for my father is there. So it's bizarre a little bit.
This is where every time I speak with you, though, you say things that are literally foundational principles of having childlike faith. You know, in order to come to me, you had that. I mean, that's scripture. You know, and you're the path that you've been on embodies that in so many ways.
Yeah, I would say he's guiding me through that. And I notice when I'm speaking with others and they're praying for me, there are words that I would use that come through in their prayers. And to me, that is God speaking through them.
Yep.
And I mean, every time somebody is praying with me, it happened with us.
Oh, before we started?
Yeah. No, when we were, when
at your place.
Yeah. In the
JB
men's
prayed.
ministry.
Yes.
It's just, again, it's just so comforting.
Yeah.
In those moments to know exactly what's on my mind is exactly what's being prayed. And it's, in that sense, I felt alone,
Yeah.
And I wasn't alone because I have this community and this outpouring of support that is showing up literally at my doorstep through connection.
And the timing of our first meeting when I'm there just looking over stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's that issue with the plumbing.
Yes.
Just
I know. What are the chances that you'd be on the phone in my yard when the toilet starts to overflow?
Yeah.
And
we're on the phone.
I couldn't have fixed it.
Yeah.
I probably could have, but by then we would have had some real damage because I would have been like, where's the water? Shut up.
It was covered. It was going quick.
So, there's really awesome moments.
God's timing is perfect.
God's timing, those winks, those you have to be open to it though.
And those nudges along the way where you're like, oh, he's like, look, I see you. I'm still a part of it. I still hear those prayers.
Yeah.
And it's the most encouraging moment when it hits you like that.
Yeah.
And you just realize oh, he is hearing my prayer. He does see me.
Yes.
Man, that's awesome.
And I want to capture some of that as it happens because it happens so frequently that I don't want to forget.
Right.
Because that's part of my testimony in all this.
Yeah.
But it does happen quite often. And I mean, again, the joy that brings in those moments.
Yeah. As you were talking, just the not forgetting, I think about throughout Scripture where God would do something for the children of Israel, and they would set up memorials or altars that, yes, it was an act of worship, but also it was so that they would remember what God had done, and also the next generation. It was also generational, so then their children would be like, "What's that memorial for? What is this pile of rocks about?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, this is when God did this," And I think
it's
sometimes, it is. And it's been around for thousands of years. And I think for us sometimes, our greatest struggles with the faith and trust that we ought to be able to maintain probably easier in God is we just forget over time, what he's done. If we had journaled and written down or something, every time we knew he had answered a prayer or been there for us or avoided this from happening or whatever, it's it's good to just from a practical standpoint to be able to do that. And for the next generation, your daughters.
Absolutely.
The way you speak about your great-grandmother, right? The things that generationally has an impact.
It does.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I just had a few more questions, and then I wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to share. But has the diagnosis in cancer in general, I guess I probably have three more questions, but one of them is, has it changed? Was there anything about it that surprised you regarding friendships and relationships or dynamics that you weren't anticipating? Because I also want this to be helpful for other people. So I guess it's two part. One, was there anything in terms of just friendships and relationships and impacts of like being diagnosed and kind of what expectations were versus reality, if anything there surprised you, good or bad?
Yeah.
And then on the second half of that, is there also things that people might think's like helpful or like encouraging, and you're just like, oh, you know, as someone going through this, it's well intentioned, but also like, you know, maybe not, you know, the best approach.
Yeah. I mean, those are great questions, because to your point, people that, you know, are diagnosed with cancer and have to go on this journey, if you haven't done it before, supported a loved one, there's a lot to navigate.
Yeah.
With regard to relationships, yes. I mean, people, I don't know if I'd call it surprise, but like you're giving each person that is connected to you an opportunity to show up as they would and as they will. If you focus on yourself, like, will that leave you disappointed, judgmental? Sure. Like human characteristics, right, would lead us down that path of like where I'm operating from that side of the brain of like survival. I'm trying to survive from cancer. I need people. Like, what can those people do, and are they doing it? So sure, if you stay in that mindset, I've had relationships that are close and maybe have distance, and some that didn't exist and are close. And so I think people will experience that in their own way. What I have found to be so important, and some of this is pre-diagnosis of just how I've been on my own life's learning journey, is through acceptance. It can be about you and how you respond to that offer, lack of offer to help, or you can really just put the posture towards that person with compassion and accept what it is that they're offering or not offering, for whatever the reason is. There are people that have helped me in their own way, and I'm grateful for that. And so I find myself less judging and more loving. And again, that's exactly what we're supposed to do, is love. And, you know, I would say that I'm a pretty open-hearted person that is just rooted in everything that I am. So I like deeply, deeply appreciate everything, whether it's a text that comes once a month, or a person on my doorstep bringing dinner. I just really appreciate it. But there are hard moments too, again, of just how those relationships evolve. And so, you know, my advice would be to respond in compassion and acceptance, because those people that are around you do love you deeply. They may be struggling with this too. It's not all about you. It's about the people that are connected to you, and it's difficult. So, communication, which again, going back to the C's, is one of the values that we hold. Communication is important. Like, you have to talk about this stuff. You can't have things left unsaid. And so, man, if you're going through this, like, put that big pillar of communication alongside faith, because that connection with people that you love becomes super important. And then in terms of, like, what works well for support, there's a lot going on logistically when you're going through this and in treatment. People like to offer help. You're like, I'm here to help. What can I do? Tell me what I can do to help. That's hard for a person to do. Like, now I have to own the task of like connecting to the person and like giving them direction on how to help me. What's worked really well is when people become a little bit more forceful in their helping, and they just do it. You know, I had an old colleague. I was literally on my phone doing my grocery order, and I saw a Venmo pop for $100 that said, you know, when you can't, you know, find the time to do dinner,
just
order dinner.
Order some food.
I was like, that's huge.
That is huge.
You know? So more on the doing, less on the asking with regard to help. Because we need all the help. You know, I had my neighbor across the street, and Thursdays are my chemo days, and she's like, I'm going to keep your daughter at school and you will get her later after dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome.
Wow.
Because I don't know if I would have asked. I mean, it's another huge lesson
that
I'm
one.
learning
Yeah.
because I act of service. I've always been a person that devotes my time for other people. And, you know, I've done that professionally. I've done that personally. To receive help is hard.
Yeah.
To ask for it is hard. But I am learning. And so I used to have this rule that if I had somebody come over and they said, is there anything else you need? I had to come up with something before they left. So sometimes it might have been like, can you pull the trash out of my trash can? You know, can you pack my kids' lunch? Like,
just to practice
something.
Get the muscle going.
Yeah, just you have to answer yes and give them something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really good to hear that. And that is something that I've realized with certain situations with people where instead of like, let me know.
Yeah.
Even I've heard some people say it's even more helpful. It's like, instead of like, let me know, it's like, you know, hey, what is it that I can do right now to help? You know, or just even try to change that a little more direct. Because if you don't know the person well enough, maybe you don't even know, like, hey, go pick up their dog.
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
But if you do put it like, not like, hey, if you get around to it one day, let me know. It's like, hey, how can I do something for you right now?
Yeah, what do you need right now?
Yeah. And then, because it's a little more of an open invitation to.
And that's difficult too. I mean, sometimes I do come up short and I can't, you know, I can't find that. But, you know, also know that the people that are helping you and of service, like, they get so much out of it. So don't take that opportunity away from them.
Yes.
My brother sent me, I forget who the speaker is, but it may have been Adam Grant, but I may be giving him props for something else. But it basically is like when you are open enough to share something personal with a person that, you know, you normally wouldn't, you should, because they want to be able to know exactly what's going on and how they can help. Yeah. And if you're not doing that, you're kind of taking something away from that relationship.
Simon Sinek, I think that's
maybe that's who it was.
Okay, he's
Thank
like,
you.
don't do me this dishonor of not letting me be involved in this for you.
We'll edit this. It's Simon Sinek.
Okay, yeah. Well, we got it.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that. He was talking about, I think, a good friendship of his, and he was like, hey, you were, you know, don't.
Yes.
You know, it was like this, like, don't withhold,
right,
you know, that honor that it is for me to be involved with you in this process and show up as that friend.
Yeah.
And he says it in such a more eloquent, powerful way. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Put the link to that because it's powerful. My brother brought that to me and I was like, that really changes your perspective on being able to, one, be open in communication and truthful, right? Like when you're having a bad day, it's okay to share that you're having a bad day. And for me, again, like that's maybe more difficult. But when you need that help from those that are around you, like, ask for it, because more than anything, they want to be able to show up for you.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I think people would be interested in knowing, since you have two young daughters, what's been helpful in terms of the approach of even telling them, you know, about the diagnosis. And then I'm sure there's ups and downs, there's questions that come up, there's, you know, how much do I share with how sick I am right now or not. I'm sure I'm not a parent, but I would imagine, you know, there's multiple thousands of other parents out there that have, whether it's a cancer or, you know, some situation that they're navigating. What's some of the lessons you've learned and, you know, in this with two girls that you are, you know, raising the majority of the time. You know, kind of that process. Yeah,
as a parent with two daughters, what was really important at the onset of this is, again, just being open and truthful with them. Hard news, you know, but I remember sitting down with them and telling them, like, I have cancer and discussing what that means. And really the offer that I gave them at that time was, you can ask me anything. So I wanted to make sure that as those questions come through their mind, you know, accompanied by, you know, worry or just unknowns, that they were able to ask the questions. And I said, I will never withhold information from you. So if you ask, I'm going to tell.
That's awesome.
And again, that's hard, right? Especially, yeah, I mean, any circumstance that you have with your kids that impacts the core family unit, right? And health, or whether that's, financial, whatever. Yeah, I had to go through that when I was laid off from my prior employer. I eventually had to tell them, like, I don't have that job anymore. So for me, it's communication, and it's rooted in honesty, and it's an offering for them to ask questions. And that's kind of how we've been able to move forward over the last 6 months, which seems like a really short time by the calendar, but feels like an eternity for me. I mean, it's just crazy to say 6 months, and it's like, multiplied by what? Because this feels like a long journey. But that's what we've done, through the scans and through the chemotherapy, and is me sharing information, and then them asking questions. And then throughout the day-to-day, I mean, my youngest asks me almost every night, are you going to heal from cancer? Like, will you get better? That's a really hard question to answer. And I tell her, like, I'm doing everything that I can to get better, and I will continue to pray for healing, and let's do that now, because it usually comes at bedtime. And so then we'll pray together, and we'll also thank God. Like, when we have good days, we'll thank him for his grace. So that's been, the method that I've used. But again, there's so much to learn. So I've connected to other moms that have had to, go through cancer, with opportunities to understand, like, what did they do, and how did they parent through this? And so I'm very much in learning mode, I always have been, but this is another opportunity for me to get that input, because I don't have all the answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's good to know. And I imagine, I was wondering as you were talking about that, like, how do you navigate when the kids are like, hey, are you going to survive?
Right.
I'm sure, in my mind, I was thinking, I'm sure that question's come up,
It has.
But handling it with that, where it's like, hey, we're going to do everything we can.
Yes.
And then we're also going to do everything we can in faith.
Yeah.
And then praying right in that moment too.
Absolutely.
It's probably that's awesome.
Yeah. But that mindset's so important. And again, going back to even the way that I live, the way that I interact with people, like, I need everybody to be in that mindset of, like, I don't care what the statistics, research, like, diagnosis, Google result shows. Yeah. I was sharing this with a friend yesterday. Why would I cloud people's mind with that information? Why? Yeah. What benefit does that give them or me? None. What I really want them to know is me as a person, my past experience and history of how I've lived my life, personally or professionally. They're connected to me and they know. Yeah. And then their path forward is through positivity, prayer, belief that I will persevere. Yep. As I have throughout my life, in my trials and my challenges. That to me is more powerful. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I stick. Now, will I ever say, what my cancer is? On a one-on-one basis, I actually do. I talk about it. I talk about the diagnosis, because that's important. But to me, a public forum, when we're talking about kids too, my kids, and my daughter, I've shared it with her. She's probably Googled it, even though I told her not to. Or hopefully she forgot it because it's a complicated name. It is. Because so I think you don't write it down, right? You don't. Yeah. So we've talked about it.
We have, and I'm like, I have no idea.
Exactly.
Because I just could not. It is a mouthful.
It is, and anyways, for me, it's just it allows me to have that dialogue with people, and not just put it out there, as a searchable word. Yeah. I don't see the value.
I don't know if there is one.
Yeah.
You're going through, you're working with your doctors and everything, but honestly, I think it's like our God doesn't operate within statistics.
No.
And as a matter of fact, he likes to,
right.
blow those out of the water.
I'm a unique, I mean, we're all unique.
I know what you're saying.
Right. But I've lived my life that started with my name, Jaede. It's very unique. Yep. I've lived through my elementary, middle school, high school years.
Because those aren't initials, JD.
No, Jaede. Yeah, and that's who I am. And even the fact so that this cancer has come to me is like, it's unique and rare. And so I just want that to continue to play out. Like my healing journey, the fact that I heal from this, that I'm in remission, it will never go away. But I can live a long, healthy life, becomes the path that I believe in. And I know others do too.
Yeah.
So I will be unique in the fact that I have this cancer and I am not like all the other patients that go through treatment and how they come out. Like that's inevitable. And I'll say that because God has a purpose for my life, and it is playing out. It is unfolding, and it requires time for me to give back. And what that looks like, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that to be true. And again, it's not about planning and setting that goal and achievement. It's about letting God guide my life path and allowing me the opportunity to serve others. And there are examples of me doing that I feel it, like called to doing random acts of kindness on February 17th in the city of Spring Hill. And here I go, being of service through the church that I attend and going to the local park and helping make sure that we have a clean playground and walking trail. Those are moments that I'm called to serve, and I just let it unfold. So I'm looking forward to seeing how my path continues to unfold in the coming weeks, months, years. Yeah,
that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing everything that you did today.
You're welcome.
And also just seeing the impact that I know you're already having, some of the seemingly small acts, right? With the playground, but just the transformative ones too, that you'll never even know about, other people's lives that were impacted, that you'll never get a response about. But that was, transformative for them. And
thank you, because you've reminded me of that too. Like, we don't always see the impact of what we can offer, when we allow God to work through us, which was, again, kind of the sermon as we started the year, allowing and praying for God to work through me. And I can see it sometimes, and other times it's happening, and I may not see it.
And you brought up this sermon that you attended where it's like, okay, I might only have these 2 fish and 5 loaves, but when placed in the hands of Jesus, like what he can feed the multitudes, right? Thousands and stuff. So, and same thing with something like, what you've been going through. It's like, all right, this is what I have. I'm giving it to Christ. I'm putting it in his hands where it's best to be anyway. And just seeing what he does through that.
Well said.
So
thank you.
You're welcome. Was there anything else you wanted to share? Or, I could sit and talk to you for another couple hours, but
this opportunity is another example of how my voice through my journey will hopefully impact others. And I'm thankful to have met you, to be able to do this. And I think, again, this is a puzzle piece in this path that's unfolding, this rebirth of Jaede. So it's going to be awesome to see where this takes me, where this takes you. So it's exciting.
It's an honor to know you, and also to sit down and have this conversation and allow it to be, shared with everyone that watches it.
So that's awesome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.